Welcome back. This is lesson 38, sales tax and tip, still part of our proportional unit. For this topic, we're going to use proportional reasoning to solve practical problems involving sales tax and tips. SOL Objective 7.4. So sales tax is the amount that is added to the price of an item based off of its tax rate. The sales tax rate is a percent that is charged for items or services. So for instance, in Virginia where we are, the sales tax rate for most items is 6%. And then we add that, figure out what that value is in dollars, and add it to our final amount. Tips then are the amounts that are added to a final price for services that are provided. For instance, if you go out to eat, to pay for your server, if you get a haircut, pay for that service, anything that you can find a tip amount for if you get pizza delivered. So the tip amount is also calculated from a percent of the original cost. Go ahead and pause the video now and copy these two definitions into your flipbook, one under sales tax and the other one under tips. Excellent. Okay, now we're going to do an example. In this example, Jeff bought a pair of jeans that cost $28.68. If the sales tax rate is 5%, what is the amount of tax that he will pay? Well, if you remember, we are going to set it up as a proportion. So we're going to have our first ratio in the first one and our second ratio in the second part. And since this is talking about sales tax and everything, we're going to be using our part to whole. So we're going to do part to whole. And then again, over here is percent out of 100. Okay, so in this case, what is, let's see, equals, and we know that's going to be 100. So this case it says 5%. So we're going to put that up there for the percent value. And we know that it's $28.68. And our sales tax rate, the sales tax rate is going to be part of that. So our sales tax rate is the value on top, and that will be the part that will be in this count. In this case, it's going to be sales tax, and it's going to be in dollars. And since we don't know how much the sales tax is going to be, that's where we're going to put our variable. And our whole amount is $28.68. So because we're basing this value off of the whole part of that we are going to have to pay. So $28.68 is our whole, and then this is our part we're looking for. So if you remember from our proportions unit that we've been practicing, we're going to multiply by multiplying opposite values. So we're going to multiply 28.68 times 5. And so we're going to have 28.68 times 5. And then the other part is going to be 100x. And when we do that, then if you pull out your calculator, so on the calculator, $28.68 times 5, and we're not going to worry about turning this into a decimal right now. In this case, it says that it's 143.4, and that's equal to 100x. So we need to divide by 100 on both sides if you were setting it up. But in our calculator, we're just simply going to divide by 100. And we get that x is equal to 1.434. But since we're talking about money, because it's what is the amount, then we need to only have two places after our decimal value. So therefore, what we really need is that x is equal to, for tax money, it's going to be $1.43 because the 4 tells the 3 to go ahead and stay the same, stay where you're at. Go ahead and pause the video and copy this under your sales tax flip section for your example. Okay, let's do an example for our tip section. So this is going to be under our tip part of our flip book. Okay. Jake ordered 2 dinner specials at $12.50 each. If he wants to leave a tip of 20%, what is the total amount that Jack will pay for his dinner? All right, this is asking us to do a few different things. So we know that we have 2 dinners and they are $12.50 each. We also know that he wants to pay a 20% tip. And if you remember from our definition, we're going to add the tip value onto the total price that we're going to pay. What we're looking for is the total amount that Jake will pay for his dinner when he's done. So let's go ahead. First of all, we're going to have to do some calculation. Well, we're going to have to figure out how much he's spending on his meal. Since he ordered 2 meals, $12.50, you can either multiply that times 2 or add it 2 times. And if we do that, we get that it was $25. All right. So as we're doing proportions, let's see, we're going to do part to whole, and it's equal to percent out of 100. And in this case, since we're looking for a tip, the tip goes on top because that's part of the value that we're looking for, the tip in money to our total price, to our price. And it's equal to percent out of 100. All right, so let's start filling in the information that we have. We know that we're going to have 20%, so that goes on top for percent. 100 goes on the bottom. And we know now that our price of our meal was $25. So the $25 is not just the part, it's going to be our whole. So we're going to have $25 on the bottom. Great, and so then we're looking for the value on top. So go ahead and multiply, do cross multiply. You're going to multiply your opposite values, and then you're going to divide by the part that's left over. So on your calculator, 25 times 20 is equal to 500, and then we're going to divide that by 100. And we're going to get 5. So in this case, x is equal to $5, because remember we were looking for it in dollars. Now, is that our final answer? Remember, it said what is the total amount. So the total amount would be our meal plus our tip, right? So our meal was $25 plus the tip is $5. So the total price is $30. Okay, so go ahead, pause the video and copy this under your example for your tip section in your flipbook. Very good. Well, let's do some more examples. Here we have a bicycle that's on sale for $189.50. We don't worry about what the original price was. This is just what they're trying to sell it for now. The sales tax rate is 5%, and we want to know the total price. So let's look for the information we know. We know that it was $189.50. We know that the tax rate is 5%, and we're looking for the total price when we're done. So just like we were practicing, we know that it's going to be part out of the whole is equal to percent over 100. Anytime we're talking about a percent, we know we're going to be using a formula similar to this. Because we're talking about the tax rate, we're using this setup. So we want to know the tax rate in money compared to the price and the percent out of 100. So how should we set this up? Well, here we have. I'm going to go ahead and move this down there. We have that x over $189.50 is equal to our 5% out of 100. Again, we don't know how much we're paying in taxes, and this is the price of our bicycle. Okay, so if we cross multiply, when we cross multiply our opposite values, and then we divide by the number that's left over, we are going to get that we're going to multiply $189.50 times 5 is equal to 100x, and we'll divide by 100. Go ahead and do that. You will get that it's going to be equal to 9.475. But again, because it's money, we want to only have two numbers after the decimal. So for 7, but we have a third value, which is 5. And so that 5 is going to tell, this 5 is going to say, well, remember, if it's 5 or above, that number needs to go up. So 7 needs to go up. So our new value now is $9.48. Okay, all right. But again, it said the total price. So this $9.48, remember, is the tax money. So when we're looking at the total price, we have to take the value that we had. Oh, I apologize. We're going to take the value that we had, and we have to add the tax value to it. So in that case, we have $189.50 plus our $9.48, and we have a total now of $198.98 as our total value for purchasing this bike. Great. In our next example, the Rodriguez family went to dinner at El Charro. I love that place. Mr. Rodriguez ordered a meal for $6.25. Mrs. R, an abbreviation for Rodriguez, ordered a meal for $7.50, and their two children ordered their individual meals for $4.99 each. The sales tax rate was $7.25%. So we want to know, how much tax did Mr. Rodriguez pay? Let's identify the parts that we're talking about. Talking about a meal. First price was $6.25. The second price was $7.50. Then we had two of them at $4.99 each. We have a sales tax rate of 7.25%. And we want to know, how much tax did he pay? How much did he pay in taxes? All right, so the first thing we need to do is figure out what our total price is, okay? So let's see, our first one we're going to do, let's get this out of the way. Oh, apologize. Go ahead and delete that. So we're going to add up $6.25, $7.50, $4.99, and $4.99. That will be the price of our dinner. So if you do that on your calculator, go ahead. You should now get that your value was $23.73 for your meal. All right, so now how are we going to set this up as a proportion? Because we're trying to find part of our whole. You're right. If you said we're looking for tax dollars out of our price is equal to our percent out of 100. All right, let's plug in. If we know that's what our proportion is, let's set it up. Okay, if you set it up right, you have that you're looking for your X, and your price of your meal was $23.73 times 7.25%. So if you remember, multiply opposite numbers, divide by the part left over. Okay, always setting it up is usually the hardest part, right? Okay, so after you do that in your calculator, this time we're only looking for the tax rate, or how much you paid in tax. We're not looking for the total meal. So after we did our calculation, you should get that he paid $1.72 in tax, and that would be, in this case, this would be our final answer. Very good. Last example. Bill and his friends went to Red Robin. I love their French fries. Their order consisted of 2 hamburgers at $5.49 each, a chicken sandwich for $6.25, an order of ribs for $12.99, and 4 sodas that were $1.75 each. They wanted to leave a 20% tip. How much was the tip? All right, so let's see what our information is that we know. We know that there were 2 hamburgers. We're going to have to calculate those. Each one of them cost $5.49. The word each kind of gives us a clue too to let us know that we're looking for more than one. There's a chicken sandwich. Our next meal is $6.25. We have another meal that costs $12.49, and then we have 4 calculations for soda, and the soda was $1.75. Excellent. And we also know that there's a 20% tip. Remember, tip we're going to add on. And this question is saying, just how much was the value of our tip? So, what shall we do first? If you said we need to calculate how much we're going to spend first, you are right. So here's what it should be. So here are the two meals at $5.49, $6.25, $12.99, and then it said we had 4 sodas. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4 sodas. And so what is the total price then of our meal going to be? Do it on your calculator. You should have gotten that meal cost $37.22. All right, so how are we going to set this up as a proportion? If you said that we're going to set it up where we have the tip money on top, the price below, the percent out of 100, you were right. So let's go ahead, plug in the values that we know. Go ahead and write that up. So those values are, looking for the tip value out of $37.22. That was the total cost of the meal. We're going to leave a 20% tip out of 100. So what shall we do? You guys are so smart. That's right. We're going to cross multiply, divide by the number that's left over. And when we do that, we're going to get just the price of our tip, which was, drum roll, 7.444. But because we're talking about money, we only want 2 values after the decimal. So 44, and then we look at the last 4, and it is below 5, so the number in front of it stays exactly the same. So $7.44 is how much we're going to leave as a tip. Excellent. All right, so for our homework tonight, you're going to copy these 2 problems into your turn page. Copy the work, show how you solved it and everything, and we'll talk about it next time. Thank you. Good night.